Happy Wednesday. I hope the world is treating you right wherever you are at on this unique Wednesday. It's October 2nd, 2024. You know what makes this day so unique is there's never going to be an October 2nd, 2024 again. This is it. And that's what makes this day so unique and all the unique opportunities exist in this day. I hope you're embracing them. Hey, if you're wondering what you're stopping by to check, this is it. This is the Imperfect Action live stream. Why do I call it the Imperfect Action live stream? You know why? It's very simple. There's no such time as the perfect time to do something. It doesn't exist. So just take the action, take the imperfect action, and do what it is you want to do. Who am I? I am Rob Fenstermaker, former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder, your kingdom builder. And I want to get you out of the rut. I want to get you in action. I want you to get very clear on what your dream is. You can start making your dream your reality. Hey, real quick before we start, this coming Friday is the Virtual Friday Whiskey Hour. It's an opportunity to bring your work week to an end, where we have some meaningful conversation. At our last Virtual Friday Whiskey Hour, we talked about, hey, you know what? This is a screwed up world, but if we all embrace what we can do to make this world a better place within our power, we can just do that. And you know what? There's no requirement to drink whiskey. Just show up and enjoy the conversation. But enough about that. It's time to go ahead and get launched into what we're here for. What we are here for is the Imperfect Action live stream. And today, my guest, Mark PAPADAS, is an award-winning speaker, author, and visionary behind the I Am for Kids, the groundbreaking program revolutionizing elementary education and youth entertainment. With over 2 decades of in the self-development field, Mark has collaborated with legends like Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, and Anthony Robbins, bringing powerful tools and self-empowerment directly to children. That's a unique proposition. And so on this unique October 2nd, 2024, what unique things you got going on in your world today,
We've got all kinds of great
Mark?
things going on. So first off, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. So in terms of what we're doing right now, so we are literally looking to change the world. So we're building the I Am for Kids brand. And so like if you have to describe what I do in one sentence, imagine Tony Robbins meets Charlie Brown. And my mission and my team's mission is we're going to do for kids empowerment and personal development what the Muppets did for reading and for math.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Say it again with these Charlie Brown. So you're not talking like bah, 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 are you when you're talking to
We're talking about Charlie
children?
Brown, not the teacher. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's very cool. And you think about children. Yeah, hey, I think children are probably one of our greatest assets because children are our future.
Yeah.
And like any asset, we need to treat them as the value that they are. And understanding, the mind of a child. I mean, the mind of a child is, hey, there's no limits to what a child can think and what a child can do in many ways. So what really swerved you into getting into, wanting to really work with children?
Well, there's two things. So number one is something that I realized when I was about 20 years old or so is that I was born with a gift. And that gift is to be able to instantly connect with kids. I can't explain it. Don't know how it works. It just does. Day doesn't go by where I'm not walking through the grocery store, walking down the street, and little kid will be there. We'll make eye contact, and they just light up a smile and wave at me. And it's not like I was initiating it or anything like that. I said I think they just realize that I'm just a much bigger version of them. That we share that same childlike energy. And that's why one of the things I teach adults is there's a difference between childlike and childish. So we want to remain childlike for as long as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. We don't even want our kids to be childish.
Yeah. I'm a man of faith, and Jesus tells his disciples, man, you got to have a childlike approach to life, and to me that means a curiosity. Children are curious. And I remember when my children were little, why that why question could go on in perpetuity, and you just why, oh, here's why, and then why, and I think that's kind of that childlike curiosity that we need in life. And there's me, curiosity it's a superpower.
It's
that I see
absolutely.
many adults have just kind of put aside. They don't get curious about life anymore. Yeah.
No, as a matter of fact, there's a quote that I put out on social media a number of years ago that people have said has made a huge impact on them, and is that when a person loses curiosity, the horizons of their world fold up to become the walls of their box. Because once you lose that curiosity, you are in that box, and then that you can't think outside of that box. Hence, all of the different, hackneyed phrases that have become
Yeah.
what they are because of that.
Yeah.
And
And you say that, and that, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, and I was
Go ahead.
going to comment, and you're talking about being, as a man of faith, you'll probably appreciate my epiphany story of why I went from working with grown-ups to working with kids. And it was a November evening in 2009.
Hmm.
My being as busy as I was traveling and speaking and all that kind of stuff, I never could be any of my kids' head coach in any of their youth sports, even though I always participated, but I was always an assistant coach, right?
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
particular year, my son was playing youth football, and the season was over, and a bunch of the coaches were getting together for a little pop at the end of just some camaraderie kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And there was a point where one of my son's coaches came over, and he just started going off on this positive rant about my son, about saying how he's,
Yeah.
any chance he gets to get little Pappy, because we didn't have first names. I was Big Pappy, my son was Little Pappy, on my team, and I'm going to pick him. He's a leader. He's coachable. Just going on and on about all these great things about my son. And then I did something that we all do, but nobody ever admits to. And
Yeah.
I mentally checked out of the conversation, even though he was still talking. And I
Yeah.
started thinking, it's like, wouldn't it be great if every parent could have these types of conversations about their kids? It's like,
Yeah.
what could I do about that? And then I realized he was still talking, so I, took it off and I re-engaged in the conversation. But I know that was the spark for what happened later that evening. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm getting goosebumps going back to that evening, because it's so ingrained, it's so
Yeah.
so powerful. As I was in bed, and I was in that stage of sleep before you hit REM, when
Yeah.
literally like a lightning bolt coming through the window. It's like, boom. I was wide awake and I was energized, because it's like, hey, dummy, this. You've been doing this with adults. All you have to do
Yeah.
is take what you know, put it into a format that the kids will engage with, and you could literally, you could change the world, because you don't have to. With adults, when we do this, we have to literally break them down so that you can build them back up. The kids
Right.
they're just a foundation just waiting to be built upon. And
Yeah.
literally, that was the night I shut down my adult business and said, I realized what my mission on earth is. And it literally just started to download into my head about what it was going to look like, how we were going to do it. And unlike those great ideas that we've all had, and we're like, I'll write them down in the morning, and we wake up in the morning and we got nothing. I didn't
Yeah.
make that mistake. I went downstairs and just
Yeah.
started
Oh,
writing.
yeah. That's it. I'm the same way. I learned. I had a mentor years ago. He said, "Man, always carry at least a piece of paper and a pencil with you, if nothing else."
Yeah,
And and it's true, man. You get those ideas, you better write them down, or at least open your phone and record it, because if you don't write it down immediately, that idea is going to be gone in an instant. Quick, because you're going to have the next idea. And you're like, wait, I had that great idea. What was it? It's
right.
gone. You gotta preserve it somehow. And I love what you said about curiosity. That too many adults are no longer curious, and they build up these walls to protect them from whatever. They think they're comfortable behind these walls, when in fact they are miserable. They're miserable. And to me, I just say, let's break down those walls that are holding you back. Let's build that bridge. Let's step into your kingdom. That kingdom is you living that life that makes a difference. You living that life that you've been called to live, because we've all been called to do something. And too many have given up on their calling for whatever reason. They've let life dictate, hey, I can't do this. It seems too I've let it go. I can no longer do it. And I say, you know what? As long as we're on this side of the dirt, you have an opportunity to do it. You have an opportunity to do something. And that to me is that curiosity, those dreams that you have that can lead you someplace else.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably love this. Are you familiar with Earl Nightingale?
Yes.
Okay, so he has
Yes.
a great quote, and I believe it's in "Lead the Field." And basically, what he says is that most people are in a rut, and that a rut is nothing but a grave with the ends kicked out.
Yep.
And
That's
if
it.
you can get out of that rut, you're, I think people don't realize what else is out there because they're so
Yeah.
deep in that rut.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, kind of I always I say something similar, there between a rut and a grave is steps in its dimensions.
Yeah.
Don't take what you want to do to the grave with you. You got to do something about it. If it's laying on your heart, do something about it. Don't worry what people are going to think, because here's the reality. Most people want to do something else and they don't have the courage to do it. You got to conquer the fear to do it and find that courage. And courage is never the absence of fear. Courage is conquering your fear, not letting fear control you. And, going deep within inside to discover that courage and take the action. That's important. That is so valuable, because that's when you really learn what you're capable of doing.
And you feel so much better afterwards.
Yeah.
That fear is such a debilitating, I hesitate to even call it an emotion, but a thought process. And it's like you said,
Yeah.
it's courage is knowing what's out there and then going ahead and doing it anyway.
Yeah, it is. And to me, there's two types of fear. There's the type that puts you in the fetal position in the corner and you do nothing, or there's the other type of fear that says, I got to do something. I can't live in this. I can't live. Excuse me. I can't live in this space anymore. I got to do something about it, and I got to move past this fear. Um, and then I think of children, and I go back to when I was a child, 10, 11, 12 years old, and some of the crazy things we did. I'm 61 years old, and so just some of the things we did back in the day. I remember when I was a kid, BMX bikes were all the rage. You remember a BMX bike?
Oh yeah.
So we would find a piece of plywood and take some bricks and build these ridiculous ramps and try and ramp over everything, and no helmet, no elbow pads, no knee pads. I mean, half the time we're wiping out. We're coming back home and we're all scraped up. We had fun doing it. We had fun. And too many adults forget what it is like to have fun as a child.
Oh, absolutely. And the fun part is also where the learning happens.
Mhm.
So all the
Yeah.
things that we did when we were that age, that parents would, neighbors would probably call DCFS on right now.
Yes. These days and age, yes. You
Right.
you get yeah, you get child protection service coming knocking on your door if you saw some of the stuff that we did when I was a child. So
Right. But kids are naturally, like you said, going building upon that curiosity is they're built to
mm,
explore.
yeah.
And literally at the cellular level. I always make a
Mhm.
joke about it's amazing how many sets of keys and loose change that babies find because they're at that floor level, right? And like,
Yeah.
oh hey, I've been looking for those kind of thing, right? But then what happens is as they're growing, they in addition to the curiosity, to me, well, let me kind of back up a little bit. I believe that every child is born with all of the traits and characteristics that they need to be successful throughout their life. So not just when they're kids,
Mhm.
but through adulthood.
Right.
So the number one thing that we can learn from kids is persistence,
Yeah.
right? It's like when was the last time that you saw a kid quit trying to learn how to walk? It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And even if they have some sort of physical malformation where they cannot walk, they find some other way of locomotion of getting from here to there. Right? They
Right.
find
And they
some
never
way.
try, and they don't stop trying. They're going to fall down
Exactly.
the first time. And they're going to fall down the first time.
Right. Yeah. They're going to cry a little bit. They're going to brush themselves off and they're just going to keep going. But then what happens, right? Now they can stand up on the coffee table. So now
Yeah.
that cup of coffee that you had on the coffee table that wasn't a problem before, now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, that's hot,
Problem.
right? Now you gotta
Yeah.
move that up a little bit higher, etc. Right? So that persistence is something that is literally beaten out of kids by
Mhm.
the adults around them. I would say by the BS, the belief system that is presented to them by the adults in their orbit. And if you can remain persistent, curiosity. So to me, that's the number two one, right? Is because
Yeah.
when they can get to those things, it's like, oh, now I get these things I couldn't see before. Now I have to explore them. I have to find out about them. And then when they get a little bit older, what do? They start climbing on the drawers so that they can get up to the countertop to see what's up there. Or maybe they use that to get to whatever's on top of the refrigerator. Maybe there's some cookies or something like that up there that they want, right? So kind of going back to what you were talking about with the BMX bikes, is you learn through that experience. It's like, okay, let's try this. And then when the first time they wiped out and went over the handlebars, it's like, okay, I need to have my weight back a little bit, right? So now when they hit the top of the ramp, instead of just going over, what do? You'd kind of pull back like this so that you landed on the back wheel, and then you'd come down and then you made it. It's like, okay, I was able to figure that out. But those are connections in the brain that are never made today because we don't give the kids enough leeway for trial and error on their own.
Yeah, I remember, talking about just some of the crazy things I did. I remember first time I ever got on the roof of our house, and how I did that. There was a tree in our yard, and there was a limb that kind of hung over it. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. If I get out far enough on this limb, I could get up on the roof. So I did, kind of held down and dropped. I didn't think it through well. How am I going to get off this roof? But that was my first time getting on the roof. But I got up there, and I'm like, this is pretty fun. I eventually got off. I had to have some friends help me off. But I remember I've heard the term helicopter parent. It drove me nuts because I never did that with my children. Hey, you know what? Just let your kids fail at some point. That's how they learn the greatest lessons. And sometimes they got to fall down and scrape and get hurt to realize, hey, I can't do this. Or like you said, the coffee's there, and maybe sometimes they need to pick it up and kind of spill some hot coffee on them to realize, hey, that wasn't a good idea. Sometimes you just got to let them make those mistakes. In order for them to really grasp what it is they can and cannot do.
Right. No, it's 100%. And it's funny how those things that are then ingrained in them as kids, see so many adults that are afraid to take any action, whether it be perfect or imperfect action, towards anything that they want in their lives. Then they get back into that rut that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. They let fear control them. They let fear of, well, what will people think if I do this? Or, if I do, I've seen it a lot of times too. They're afraid to do that thing, whatever it may be, because it may take them to another place because they're hanging on to a relationship that maybe is not really serving them. And sometimes you just need to let some of those relationships go. And, to me, the relationships fall into one of three categories: a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you just got to understand where you're at in the terms of that relationship. Is this relationship just for a season? Is this season coming to an end? Maybe it's time to move on from this relationship. Or is it for a reason? Maybe I've got a business relationship with this person, and maybe that relationship's coming to an end, and it's time to move on. The lifetime ones, those can be some of the most problematic ones because those are usually our family. And we've all heard, those experiences of, we all have them. We all have those people in our family that are like, oh, grief. All right. I guess I can suck it up for Thanksgiving to spend some time with them. But beyond that, I don't know. But you got to temper those relationships and where you're at with them. And I think that sometimes a lot of people are fearful of letting a relationship go.
I would 100% agree with you. And the funny thing is if you were to ask them why, they probably wouldn't be able to answer that.
Yeah. 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 You're right. And a lot of times maybe they'll think less of you. Okay. And I don't live my life to please everyone. And I know there's people I have hacked off, and I have my haters out there. Like, whatever. I don't care. I know who I am, and I know what I am. And I know what I am, and that there's something powerful about knowing what I am, the power of an I am statement. And I've gotten into the practice. I'll do it periodically where I will just spend a week, 2 weeks in my journal just writing I am statements. Just writing I am statements. Some days some days I'll maybe spend a minute, but there's been days where I will spend 25, 30 minutes just writing I am statements. And the powerful thing about that is going back and reading what you wrote. And I've taken my clients on some of those journeys as well to write those I am statements because there is so much power in that.
Yes. Yeah. And well, most people don't realize it. So really how I got started. In other words, where the whole name of I Am for Kids comes from, is that's the foundation of everything else that we teach. That is
Mhm.
the foundation of the building. Because until you have that,
Right.
you really don't know who you are. And if
Sure.
you've never given it conscious thought, then all you have is what the loudest voices in your orbit say about you
Mhm.
to go by.
Yeah.
So it's funny. So the 5-step identity building process that I came up with is it's the same 5 steps, whether I do it with adults or kids. It's just how they're taught is obviously completely different. But the
Mhm.
first step is they're given a blank sheet of paper that just says I am on the top of it. And we
Yeah.
ask them to complete it. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's kids or adults, hands go up, well, what are you looking for? How do you want me to answer this? It's like, there's no right or wrong answer, just however you think you should, right?
Mhm.
So when I do it with adults, over 80% of the time, they'll answer with either their name and or
Yeah.
their occupation.
Yeah.
Right? And neither of which has anything to do with who you are. One's a label you were given by your parents when you were born. The other is what you do to make a living. But it has nothing to do
Yeah.
with your core belief systems, the standards you hold yourself and others to, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
Now, when we started doing it with the kids in the pilot classrooms, one of the things we expected is we got almost 100% one-word answers, because that's how kids answer questions, right? How was school today? Good. That's just
K.
how they are.
K. Our son would just say K. K. Just
Yeah,
give it,
exactly.
protect K. Just a K.
So,
That's not even a
so that,
word.
yeah,
That's just a letter.
right. Yeah. So that part was expected, but what really scared us was that over half the time that one-word answer was a negative trait or characteristic, with the 3
Yeah.
most common ones being I'm fat, I'm ugly, or I'm stupid. And that's
Yeah.
where we realized that this is so important what we're doing. And when the teachers were saying, you know what, like you were talking about with the title of the show, right? The Imperfect Action. Bring out. We need this. Don't wait till you raise enough money to where you can do a Disney quality animated thing for us. Just get it out there. We need this. So that was, it is so important, that I am statement. And then where I think where what we do is important, because a lot of people, when they write their I am statements, they'll kind of answer it like the kids, right? They'll kind of have like, I am amazing, I am strong, I am this, or I am that. And those will have different definitions to different people. So like my great and
Yeah.
your amazing might have the same meaning, but to me great's up here, but to me amazing's down here, right?
Yeah.
So it's going into greater details to actually write it out in full sentences with as many of the distinctions and adjectives as you can, so that it becomes more focused and more real to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. One of the things I've always said, people ask, if people ask me that question, I say very simple. I'm a husband to my wife, a husband to my wife, and father to my children. And to me, as a man, that is the most significant responsibility we have. Because to
Oh,
me, you talked about foundation. Family is the foundation of our communities, and I've seen too many families just destroyed for whatever reason. And, I'm on this mission now. I want to empower men to be better husbands to their wives and better fathers to their children, because we need that.
yes.
I'm tired of seeing, limp dick men who don't accept their leadership responsibility, because as men, we have been called to be leaders. We have. And I know in some, circles in our society, that's an unpopular statement, but it's true. It's so true. I've done a lot of um, prison ministry work. And, every inmate I ever sat with had no relationship with his father. None.
Mhm.
None. And so we wonder why we have, the problem that we have with crime and our young people getting thrown into prison. It's right there. It falls on the shoulders of men, and men need to stand up and start taking their responsibility. And, what you're with children, I'm with men. It's to me, it's so important that I want to see men take that stand and understand who they are and what they can do, what they can accomplish.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. And it kind of like you were talking, I think that especially when you're talking about it within a family, there's always a a yin and yang, a give and take in
Mhm.
terms of that energy.
Right. Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, for example, I mean, I would say my relationship with my father got much better after I was grown. And part of that was
Well,
because he was
that's good.
living up to
Yeah.
his role.
Yeah.
So we grew up, I would call it upper lower class. So, I never missed a meal. I got to play Little League and all that kind of stuff, but we
Yeah.
never owned a home.
Mm.
There was a
Yeah.
couple times I can remember where we were on food stamps and stuff like that. So my
Mhm.
dad always took the shifts that paid the overtime,
Yeah.
the bonus time, all that kind of stuff. And he was basically the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make a point that not that I don't think he was a good dad, but I wanted to be more connected with my kids than just
Mhm.
the guy who comes in when there's trouble, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and again, that kind of goes back to the identity. That is a decision that I made, as opposed to just dealing with the circumstances that were around me.
Yeah.
And some marriages will be happier with a little bit more of the masculine energy, occasionally
Mhm.
going over to the female side. It'll
Yeah.
always
Oh, I
it'll
agree.
always balance out, at least in the good relationships.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I agree that as men, we both have a masculine and a feminine energy. The masculine energy to me is you're the protector.
Oh
You're
yeah.
the one that's going to stand there and protect the family. That feminine energy is a little bit more empathetic. And, for most men, it didn't, empathy is not something that necessarily comes natural to me. But, once I got married and uh, had children, especially a daughter, I had to figure out how to be empathetic and really understand how to do that in order to make that impression upon my children so that they could grow up to be quality human beings.
Yep.
And I think that's something that my wife and I were able to do. I see parents that want to be the best buds with their children. And, yeah, I can be friend, but when they're young, I don't know. I think you're doing your child a disservice where you just try and be their best bud and not teach them some discipline. And I think that's what's important about being a parent.
I'm sorry to be laughing. It just reminds me of a story with my oldest daughter and my now ex-wife, uh, where we had a nice backyard, and we were going to go buy her a sandbox so that she could be playing outside and we could see her out the windows, etc.
Yeah.
And so we went over to what is now the defunct Toys R Us to buy her a sandbox. And it was about a 20-minute drive. And she's just being a 3-year-old, 4-year-old kid, just doing what she does. And she had actually climbed up on one of the racks. And we're like, get down from there. And she's kind of like, no, no, no. And my wife had a thing, was basically she would count to 3. And if she got to 3, there was a punishment, that's when bad things were going to happen. So she's like, 1, 2, and then my daughter says 3. And I'm like, I'm like,
Game
we're out of
on.
here. Yeah, I'm like, we're out of here. And my wife's like, she's like, I know we have to do that, but I don't want to have to come back next week. I'm like, you can't let her win.
Yeah.
And she's like, I know, but, and I was like, no, there's no buts. They just turned the card around. I was like, we are out of here. She has to learn that, and it's
Yeah.
still a funny story. Every once in a while, I'll say that to her. I'll be like, 1, 2, and she goes 3.
The cool thing about being a parent, I mean, you try and offer your children advice, and when they get to that age, usually 12, 13 years old, it's just like hey, talk to the hand, Dad. Like, okay, whatever. And eventually, but that time is coming. Trust me, if you're a father out there and you're dealing with especially a daughter, that time is coming when they will come to you and say, "Hey, Dad, I got a great idea." What is it? And it's something you've been telling him for the last 6 or 7 years. And I remember my daughter first did that to me. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. How did you ever think of that?
But yeah,
I'm amazed that you came up with that.
yeah. And if you don't mind, I can share some hints that there are some ways. I don't want to say so much around that because it won't eliminate it, but
Yeah.
in psychology, there's a term that's called pre-framing. So when our kids were 8, 9, 10, before they got to that part where they're really starting to look for that independence, is
Yeah.
we were sharing with them, is like, look, there's going to come a time when you're going to think we're just the dumbest people on earth, and you're going to hate us. So
Yes.
just know that that will pass. So we're kind of just planting that seed with you, that when you're like, I hate my mom and dad, just know you won't hate us forever. There'll become a time a few years after that where it'll, you'll be like, yeah, they're not so bad after all.
Yeah.
And I find that the people that I teach, when they employ those in advance, they run into a lot less of that. My parents are the dumbest people ever. So if for where that's worth, that's a hint that if you have younger kids, please go ahead and
Yeah.
try that.
It's just part of the process. And the relation, I mean, they're always going to be my children are always going to be my children.
Yes.
But like you said, I mean, your relationship changed with your father as the two of you got older, and the relationship with my children is changing as well. And the I think the greatest gift that my wife and I that we gave our children is, one, we let them be children,
Right.
we let them make mistakes, and when they made mistakes, you just sit them down. Hey, what did you learn from this? Okay, are you going to do it again? No. Okay, fine. If they made the same mistake again with something, the conversation's a little bit different. Um, but the thing that I take the most pride in my children is that they're living their life and they're figuring out life on their own terms. On their own terms. And I think to me that's powerful that they're doing that.
Yep, they're adulting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Adulting. That's
Yeah.
they're adulting. And they're not living in our basement. And I see some parents where their 20-year-old is still living in the basement. You're like, good grief, man. But come on. For me, both my children, one left the house at 18, was ready to go out and strike out on their own, the other at 19. And never came back. And power to them. You love to see it. And it's
Yeah.
not that I would say if something were to ever happen and they yes, we would provide a space for them. But they embarked on their own journey, and as a father, that's what you want to see your children do: learn life.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's one of the things that I cover in my book that is for
Mhm.
the adults. It's the 10 secrets to
Yeah.
empower kids and awaken the child in you. Is one of the things we're talking about is you do have to let them learn, and they have to learn
Mhm.
that decisions have consequences. So if
Yeah.
they
Oh
screw
yeah.
up, you have to let them pay that punishment. But the
Yep.
other one is to recognize that your kids aren't your mini me. You may love baseball and you'd love for your kid to grow up
Yeah.
to be a major leaguer, but he may love music, and
Yeah.
you have to
That's
support
it.
that.
You say that. I mean, I grew up sports. That was my thing when I was a kid. My wife was pretty much the same way. But our son, he went into music. I don't know where he got the music. I mean, the only instrument I ever played growing up was the accordion. That was it. My wife played no instruments, but he found his sweet spot in music. Cool, support her.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and every like I said, it just comes down to unique. We're all uniquely created, and you're right. There are no mini me. I mean, my son is a spitting image of me, but emotionally, he acts like my wife. My daughter is the spitting image of my wife, but emotionally, she takes after me. It's just you just never know. It's just a funny perspective of how our children grow and how they embrace life. So when you're working with children, I'm assuming is this mostly in a school setting where you're coming in and working with children?
so up to this point, yes. So the
Okay.
our school program is me interacting with these 5 animated characters, and
Okay.
I take them through the identity building process, and the characters answer the way that we know certain percentages of the kids in the classroom are thinking and feeling. So now that they know that it's a safe place, that I'm not weird for thinking the way that I do, kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then so there's a teacher's guide and all that kind of stuff. That it's designed so that you don't have to be certified or anything like that. If you can read and you
Mhm.
can press play on a DVD player, you can run the program. Okay, because we tell
Okay.
what kind of questions the kids are going to answer and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
so that still exists and that will continue to exist. We're actually in the process of redoing that program, bringing it up to the animation standards that exist today, not what they were in 2014 when we first released it, because it's
Yeah.
choppy at best, but the content is still good. So so that's where we are now, and we're going to continue to do that. But where we're going with it now is, so for example, we're in the process of developing the world's first animated reality-based TV show for kids. Our
Okay.
working title is I Am for Kids TV, and it's real stories of real kids who have gone through the program and the impact that them developing that empowering identity that it has made, whether it be in their family, their schools, or communities, and sometimes beyond. Because the fifth and final step in the process is to live it. In other words, to be the person that you've just decided that you are. And the lifetime homework assignment for that is that you have to come up with a project that embodies that identity that you just created. And it can be anything that you want it to be. The only rule that we put on it is that it has to benefit somebody other than just yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, and these kids come up with these amazing, they don't realize it usually at that young age, but they're very entrepreneurial because it's usually there's a thing that they want. So generally speaking, to get a thing, you have to get some money. So what can I, as a little kid, what can I do to earn some money to get that thing? Right. So they learn goal setting. They learn subliminally other good life skills to have. And like when I speak at corporations and stuff like that, in case you haven't figured it out yet, I Am for Kids is my I Am project.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
So anyway, so the TV show is the real stories of these kids and the impact that those projects have had. And what that does, we then give, with the parents' permission, of course, that child can then be the next I Am for Kids character.
Okay.
So right now there's the 5 core characters, but then we can grow out that character base, and it'll always be new kids, new 2nd through 5th graders coming into the school system to be going through the program. So we're always going to have new stories, so that the show is always going to be current with real stories of real kids. So from that point, we're looking to go beyond the schools and then teach. Like, for example, our I Am for Kids Academy is going to be like our biggest ticket. And that is all the things that as adults, people say, well, why didn't they teach us this stuff in school? And so we're going to be doing that through, like online, doing it through live events. So if, like, kind of going back to the Tony Robbins meets Charlie Brown kind of thing, it'll be me as the main person out front doing the teaching, but it's really the characters who do the implementation.
Okay. You kind of answered one of my questions. So the age range you're really looking at is probably about 7 to 11 years old is where you're really kind of focused on.
Yeah, 7 to 11, 8 to 12, so 2nd through 5th grade, and that's where we start. So we have programs that literally go from 8 to 68. Yeah, so we've got content for everybody, but we're starting there because that's where it'll have the biggest impact and the longest lasting impact in people's lives, and then we will expand out from there.
Do you have a story of one of these children that went through the program of something they took on and really made a difference?
Well, my favorite story was told to me. It was a little girl. She was in, I want to say, if I remember correctly, 3rd grade at the time. Okay. She had her next door neighbor was her best friend, a little boy. Mm-hmm. The little boy, when he was, I believe, 5, they found a massive brain tumor. Nearly died. Had to go, have the surgery, chemo, all that kind of stuff, and it really stunted his growth. Just he wasn't like all of the other kids his age, and just in terms of his development, but they always remained close friends. And it got to the point to where he was recovering and he was doing very well, and he was able to come back to the regular school for the afternoon school section every day.
Yeah.
That was a huge hurdle, right? So he would then take the school bus home to the neighborhood to go home for the day. And as some kids are known to do, some of the other kids made fun of him because of how he kind of had walked a little funny, just he still was mostly bald because of the chemo. Mm-hmm. He kind of looked like a 50-year-old man as far as his hairstyle kind of thing. So they would make fun of him for all that. And this one day it got bad and he cried, and the little
Yeah.
girl didn't do anything about it. It happened again the next day, and the little girl basically just told the bullies, like, you better cut this out. You're gonna, and they're like, oh, what are you gonna do? And it, other kids stood up behind them to say, kind of like, yeah, you're gonna have to go through all of us, kind of stuff. And they all stood up for him. And so that, that's one of the stories that I mean, once again, I'm kind of getting goosebumps because that is a little girl who was living that. That
Mhm.
was mind body connection to its whole fullest extent right there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's a good
Yeah.
story. And she found the courage. She,
Yeah.
it wasn't even courage. She did what was right. She knew in her heart what she had to do. And going back to the lessons we can learn from children, I see too many adults. They see something going down and they just, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. I- So
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you just need to, step aside. You need to get involved with whatever you see. If you see an injustice, you need to get involved in changing. That's the only way. That's the only way we're going to change this screwed up world that we live in, is people not casting a blind eye when they see injustices going on, whatever that injustice may be, and standing up. And I mean, bullies just aren't on the school buses.
Right.
Bullies are all around us. You see bullies when you go to the grocery store. You see bullies when you go to church. You see bullies everywhere. And sometimes, I've always told my kids that the quickest way to get a bully to stand down is you punch him in the nose. Maybe not necessarily in the physical
That's it.
sense,
Right.
but you punch, you stand up to him.
Right.
You stand up to him because the reality is the vast majority of bullies are huge cowards. And when you stand up to them, they're going to fall like a house of cards.
Yep. And another thing to recognize that is that know that your kids are always watching. I don't care how old they are,
Yes.
whether they're talking 8 or whether they're
Yes.
28. They are always
Yes.
watching you. This reminds me of a story where I took my oldest daughter. At the time, she was probably 7 or 8, and we used to go. As our thing was Saturday morning, as I would take her over to the bagel store. We'd get a bagel, I'd get a coffee, she'd get an orange juice, kind of thing, and that was our little time together.
Yeah.
And there was a dad and his son in line ahead of us, and the cashier gave him too much change back. So
Mm.
we recognized it. His son recognized it. The dad just kind of looked, put the money in his wallet, put it away.
Yeah.
The look of disappointment on his son's face when he
Yeah.
did that hit
Yeah.
me like a ton of bricks. And yeah, I didn't say anything. I probably still wouldn't today because once again, it's not my child. And it's not like he was abusing the child,
Right.
but that's a, that is something that I promise you that kid remembers to this day.
Oh yeah. He taught that kid a valuable lesson.
Yeah,
And that what lesson that kid learned was not the lesson that is going to serve him well in life.
exactly. It's just business, right? How many times have we heard that?
Yeah. Yeah, just a business. It's just a business. Yeah, okay. I know people say that, it's just a business. Okay. Let's turn the tables. What if that same business, took money out of your pocket? How would you feel?
Right.
You wouldn't feel the same way. Wouldn't feel the same way. And so sometimes just how you put it in that perspective, just kind of something's got to turn the tables. And yeah. But yeah, children, I did 15 years of youth work. So I was working with, 12, 13, 14-year olds. And to me, that is a great time. That's a great age range to work with, because it's an opportunity. Because one, they're really starting to get life figured out, and a lot of times, they were definitely having their struggles. But you had an opportunity to really speak into their life. The cool thing now is that of those kids that I worked at when they're that age, they're all now adults. They're on to adulting. Some, some have had children, married, already, well into their career. And I'll run into them on occasion, and they still remember me. And then they talk about something you did that made a difference in their life in that moment. It's like, okay, that's cool. It just gives
Yeah.
you talk about a goosebump. It's one of those goosebump feelings when someone is able to tell you that something they remember that you did so many years ago. Just
Yeah.
something maybe as a throwaway line that you said, but it made a difference in their life. And that's to me is what the opportunities. I started off by saying that today is a unique day, and it is a unique day. There's never going to be another October 2nd, 2024. And that's what makes this day so unique. And we never know the opportunities that exist. The simple the way we can change somebody's life. And honestly, it's often just the small things we do that can change somebody's life. Like I said, it maybe, I talked about maybe those throwaway lines that I said, years ago that impacted. We never know. Maybe a
Yeah.
smile, just a kind word to someone can change their life immeasurably. Because we don't know what's going on in somebody's head.
Right.
We can think we do, but the truth is we really don't. Only they know what's going on inside their head.
Yep.
And when we approach those opportunities, it can make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, I love the way you talked about the throwaway line, because I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me where somebody has come to me and it's something I might not have even remembered saying, or it's like, I remember that presentation that, like, I wasn't really on top of my game that day. It's like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
but that's when you learn that what we're teaching, that what we're putting out into the world is so impactful and is so important, that
Yeah.
even if you don't feel like you're at your best, you've got to go out and give it everything that you have that particular day, whether it's 100, 110, 80% of what you normally are. You got to give what you got.
Yeah. So if people want to learn about you, they just go to your website and obviously learn a little bit more about what you offer, what it is you do. Now you're also a speaker.
Yes.
Now, are you only speaking to children's groups, or are you also speaking to adults groups still, or?
So yes. So my lane, if you will, has to do with schools and education. So I do a lot of assemblies. I do a lot of school presentations, but also to parents groups, to colleges, educators, etc. Because it's all about teaching what we need to teach to make sure that the kids are able to get to that identity, but also to get to those adults as well. Because when the kids have questions, if it's something like, yeah, this is going to be great for you, and they ask you about your identity, if you don't have answers for it, then pardon my language, but then they think you're full of crap. So, and to a certain extent you
Yeah.
are, so
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be if you don't have an answer to something, there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. Can I get back with you? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, matter of fact, I think that's a power play. I think that is an absolute power play because one, you're honoring their question in that you don't know the answer right now, but can I get back with you and give you a more concise answer? So let me think about it.
yeah.
So
Can I share another little tip?
please.
So this works with people of all ages, but it's especially effective with younger kids, and especially when they're asking those questions that aren't necessarily fact based, right? You know, when they ask you a question, or I'm sorry, not so much when they ask you, but you ask them a question, and then they
Right.
say, "I don't know." Say, "I know you don't know, and that's okay. But if you did know, what would the answer be?" Because because basically when the brain, when they say, "I don't know," literally the brain just shuts down. It's like, I don't know. So there's no reason for me to go looking for the answer back here. But then when you
Yeah.
say that I know, that's okay. But if you did, now all of a sudden, well, if I did, and you'd be amazed how often they come up with the correct answer that was in there. But now they just
Yeah.
got past that filter, if you will, that kept them from getting it.
Yeah. And we all have the answers to our own life within us. And
Hmm.
what I do is I help people unpack that, whatever it is. That's part of, when I want to see somebody, take that action, I help them to unpack those answers within them so they can do it. And you're doing the same with children. You're helping them to unpack that answer. You're doing it with adults as well. Unpack that answer because it's there. And sometimes we just need somebody to help us shine the light on it so we can see exactly what it is we know to be true.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, Mark, I have really enjoyed this conversation. It's been a great conversation. I've taken away a lot from it. Just in case you noticed, I was sitting there jotting down some notes as we were talking, and I really got a lot of value out of this. I mean, is there any final wisdom you would like to offer before we call this one a day?
No, I would less wisdom, more of a favor, I guess you could say, for
Yeah.
anybody who's watching. So, one of the things that we're doing, we talked about how we're developing the TV show. So
Yeah.
we are using GoFundMe in a very unique way. So
Hmm.
we're not trying to raise money. We've already got our investors. We're already developing the show. What we are doing is we want to get as many $1 donations as we can possibly get. And
Okay.
that's because so that when we finish the pilot and we start pitching it to Netflix, to Hulu, Amazon Prime, etc., that we can say, look, we've got 45,000 people who donated $1. We've got a built-in audience. All you have to do is greenlight this project. So
Yeah.
if you think that the mindless drivel that is aimed at our kids and the first person shooter games and all that kind of stuff is not good for kids, and that you would support some empowering educational TV for kids, you can go to gofundme.com/ the letter F, don't know why that's in there, / I am for kids, IAM, the number 4 kids dash TV.
Okay.
We've got a little 2-minute video there explaining what the show is all about. And I said, if you like it, give us $1, share it with your friends. And if they give us $1 too, then we'll be able to go and be able to do that. And then the last thing that I end pretty much any conversation with, and it's part of why I'm known as, is always remember everybody out there to be great.
Okay. Is that it right there? GoFundMe FIM for kids. Is that it?
GoFundMe.com.
.com. All right. I knew there was
Yeah.
a .com in there, but there. So, all right. Well, Mark, I've really enjoyed this conversation, like I said. And yeah, hey, people, get that dollar. Let's see this go. Let's see this happen. Let's see that get on Netflix, as I would love to see that. Just a reminder, this Friday is the Virtual Friday Whiskey Hour. Go ahead and stop on by. I look forward to connecting with you at the Virtual Friday Whiskey Hour. Who knows what the conversation will be, but I guarantee it's going to be something that is of interest to me, and I guarantee you we'll have some deep, meaningful conversation. But people, that wraps up another Imperfect Action live stream. I'm glad you stopped by. Hey, let's make the most of this unique day and the unique opportunities that exist within this day. Be the best person you can. Peace out, everyone.